This is going to be a video to go over our new website for the club. I'm going to show you everything on here first, and then we're going to look at the code and some other tools for web development. So this can help you guys jump to the next step of web development instead of just your Python code. So this is our homepage. Our navigation bar is on the side right here. I made it a little different than normal. These are usually like across the top of a page. Any web page has some sort of navigation like this, but I styled it up on the right side like tabs. We have this image is just our welcome screen. We can add more images here as a little gallery. So each of these tabs on the right side are tools for you guys. We have our project ideas list that you've seen on the Google Classroom, our text-based console games, and our basic web development other options here, which is how this website was made for these options. We have my tutorial videos that I've emailed to you before, but now you can access them here on the website. We have some resources like our online IDEs that we've been using, CodeHS and Replit. This section is coming soon. This is how you can create websites and other code, how professionals do with an installed development environment, which most people use Visual Studio Code. This is what I use to make this website. And this website is also hosted by Firebase. Firebase is a Google service where you can host websites for free. You don't get to customize the domain name because you have to buy domain names, but you can do it for free if you don't buy a domain name. So I'll show you how to do this whole setup, and you can make websites like I made this one. There's some links to some HTML, CSS, and JavaScript courses that are through Code Academy, and these are all free. So if you want to spend some more time on web development, you can take some time and do these courses. And then this is going to be a list of other useful information, like this Flex CSS styling, which I use in this website a lot. This website is nice because it has really good visuals that make sense on how you can organize your items on your HTML page. And you'll understand this more once I show you guys the behind the scenes of this website, on how everything on a web page is like a little box, and you have to tell those boxes how to interact and lay out with each other. So flex styling, this whole concept here is super helpful. That is in our resources page under useful information. I've kept this website really basic. Like this page is obviously not very pretty to look at because I'm going to make some more tutorial videos down the line that make these pages prettier and teach you guys some more HTML, CSS, and maybe not even JavaScript. We might not need that for this website. So our club projects is our next tab. Here I have last year's project, our Shark Spotter app, and you can play the whole thing right here on the website. Super cool. Same as it was before if you tried this out at Club Day. I can add more projects to this page. I want to add some of your projects from this season, or this school year, our Python games to play here, and just make this a whole display of everyone's projects for a while, I guess. Next tab is our About page. This is about Girls Who Code, and then about me. And last but not least, our contact page that is very empty because it just has my email on it. So that is the website in its basic form. We have all these helpful tabs over here. Now, what does this look like in code? So in VS Code, which is where I've been writing all this code, it's a downloaded software that is fully built out so you can organize everything. It's similar to Replit online if you've used Replit, how you can make different files, but you do need to have something else to deploy that code. If you use Replit online, it just does that itself because it's already online. But here I had to hook this into Firebase to be able to create that website. So this is the real deal if you want to try this. Let me close out all these and start at the beginning. So let's look at our file setup here. So all of my HTML files are right here. HTML files represent each page on your website. So notice I have, so this is confusing, this index.html. Index is what you name every single like home page of a website. So the page that you start on is your index. Even though like on my tabs over here, I call it home. It could be home.html, but by standards, we name that one index.html. I can't tell you why, but that's the proper way to do it. So we have our index, which is our home page. And then notice we have a different HTML file for each tab, our about, our club projects, contact, ideas, and so on. So each of these has all this crazy code that represents the items on the screen. So let's look at this page, our contact page, because it's super simple. So we have this little header that's on every page, and then we have the body of the page with these words in it. Notice this one is bigger, this one is smaller. That is all done by the HTML, and the CSS plays a role, but we'll get into that next. So let's go to our contact.html, because this is that page that we were on. Notice every HTML file starts with this, our doc type HTML and HTML. This is just the standard setup for an HTML page. They're created with an HTML tag, that's what we call these tags, that wraps the whole entire thing, and then a body tag. And above the body tag, we have the head. So this is the standard setup of every HTML file. It's HTML, this doc type at the top also. And then we have a head section, and then we have a body section. And everything that is nested inside of another tag should be indented. So notice my head tag is inside of my HTML tag, my body tag is also, so they're all indented. So if I were to add something else, like a paragraph here, it's also going to be indented. That's why this structure exists. So we're going to keep comparing this page to the web page itself. So this head section is not visible on the page. This defines where the styles come from, and what little icon is used right here. It's just called a favicon. See how we have, that one's kind of too dark to see here, but we have this little asterisk, and we have our Girls Who Code logo for our website. That's where the icon gets defined right here. And then links to our CSS. So HTML is the objects on the page, and CSS is specific styling for those objects. Also, this title right here is what gets displayed on the tab. So right here it says contact. Same with these. This is defined in their head section in their HTML file. So this is all just like the background information that is necessary, but it's not as noticeable as what is in the body tag. The body tag is the actual page of the website, the part that we see. And for this case, let's go over each of these tags. So a div right here, it is, I think it's short for like divider probably. It just creates a section on the page. And I have given this div the ID page body, and it wraps around all of this stuff right here. Now outside of this box, this div, I have another div that I've called side nav, where, and if you can guess what that means, this is our side navigation. So this is our navigation bar over here. And this is on every single page at the bottom of the page, because it's the last thing. All this body stuff is over here. This is the last thing to follow it. So our navigation comes last on the page. So we have the body and we have the navigation bar. I've separated those two because I want them to act as little separate entities. Within my page body, I have another div, another box that keeps our header stuff. It has an image, which is our Girls Who Code logo over here. Image tags are IMG. Their source is where we can find that image in our file structure. So we have resources, images, and then Girls Who Code. So over here, I have my resources folder, my images folder, and then here's my little icon image. So I'm linking this to the image I want the tag to display. Alt right here is just the words that come up when you hover over the image. And then I've also given this an ID. You see ID in a lot of places here. Giving an element or a tag an ID allows you to style it specifically in your CSS. You can call out I want to style my header like this in your CSS file. IDs should only be assigned to things that there are only one of on the page. So down here, I only have an ID on one of these, but if I made this ID something like tab, I can't put this on every single one of my anchor tags because they are all tabs, but it cannot be an ID because there's more than one of them. So you have the option between an ID and a class. A class lets you set multiple things to have the same name, and then you can style all of those things at once in your CSS. So that's going to make more sense when we look at our CSS. Actually, let's hop over there now. So I have CSS files for each of my web pages so they can have their custom colors, how every tab has its own color. But I also have global styles. So this applies to every page. Let's look at our about real quick. Sorry, contact. So we have this hashtag means it's an ID. So anything with the ID side nav, which is our navigation bar, let's look at this one first. Anything with the ID side nav gets a purple background color. So everything over here is purple because all of this is within that side nav div. Let's inspect that real quick. So side nav, ID side nav, this div right here contains that whole bar that we see. And this CSS that selects side nav by the ID and sets the background color is what's making all of this purple. Other things, so you can select by ID like this with our hashtag. If we did make this a class, if we had multiple side nav bars, you would use a period instead. So a hashtag is for IDs, a period is for classes. Classes are assigned to multiple tags, IDs are assigned to unique individual tags. Something that there's only one of these on the page. You can't have more than one tag or element with the ID side nav unless you made that a class, which then you select with a period, not a hashtag. Other than that, we also have our just straight up tag names. So we have like our body is what wraps that whole page, and I'm making it this light purple color. So I'm grabbing the body by its tag name and making it light purple like this. Other ones, we have some other elements here. We have H1, H2, H3, and P. So these are a heading 1, heading 2, and heading 3, which makes different sizes of text. And then a paragraph is our smallest amount of size of text. So the sizes of these come by default without CSS, but I could also set their font size here and just make all of them the same size. But here I'm making all the text on my page the dark purple color. So we got this is dark purple, this is dark purple. This is not dark purple because I've given it an ID and I'm setting it to that light purple color instead. I've given it page title, the ID page title, and I'm telling the text to be the light purple color. So we can find that, where is it? Right here, ID page title. So we have our Girls Who Code logo and our page title in our header div, which is inside of another div that just keeps that whole app header separate. And now I realize that I probably don't need this at all, but I probably have some custom styling on it. But let's look at what this looks like on the other side of things using the Chrome Dev Console. So this is blocked on your school computers, but I'm hoping you will be able to use this to your advantage if you do some web development on your loaned donor computers from our club. So if you right click and hit inspect, that pulls up your Chrome console. So this is a tool for software engineers to edit their websites while seeing it. Because when you're coding, when you're just looking at HTML and CSS like this, it doesn't make a lot of sense unless you really know what you're doing, but you still can't see what it looks like until you load this page. And this is a tool to help you see what's going on better. So this is the same exact code we had in there. We have HTML tag with our head tag, our body, and all these other little sections, like our header. We have our image tag, We have our H1. Notice when I hover over these, it shows how much space it's taking up. So this div, this box on the page that I have wrapping around our header, you can see it's highlighted in blue, and everything that's inside of that div cannot come outside of that div. So everything is cut off at the edges. That's the purpose of divs, is separating content into chunks, and then you're able to organize that however you want to. So we have our header div that contains our image and our H1 tag. Notice this orange on the top and the bottom of that H1 tag. If I click over here, you can see the styles, the CSS on this side. So we can see that our page title is light purple, and it's overriding this H1 style I had to make it dark purple. So it says that's not as specific because we're calling out all H1s instead of something very specific. The only thing on the page with the ID page title. So this overrides our more or less specific tag styling. But our orange lines on the top and bottom, that is called margin. So margin adds padding. Thought I had this somewhere in here. Nope. Margin adds padding to the out. That's a confusing word. Margin adds space outside of the tag itself. So this tag just contains the words, but it has this extra margin around it to make sure it fills up the space vertically within this header blocks. Our image here, I did add margin to. So I added margin to the left and right. If you have this margin, the CSS, you're not going to remember it until you do it a lot. You would Google this, just like everything else. You Google it and figure it out. This first number is the top and the bottom. This is the left and the right. So I said no padding on the top and the bottom, only on the left and the right, because I don't want this to be pressed right up against the edge of the screen, and I don't want it to be stuck next to this. So the cool thing about the Google Dev Console here is I can uncheck that and see what it would look like. So it's all squished together. Or I can tweak the values and see what it would look like if there was more padding, which I don't want. That's a little bit too much. But whenever you refresh your page, everything you tweak in this console resets. So if you want to keep your styles, make sure you copy them over to your files in VS Code, or they're lost. Okay, so that's our header section. We see how the divs are boxes that contain everything. Our next div is our body content here. So this is what's left on the page. And I've created all these sections to keep things organized. We have an H2, which makes big text. Notice it is smaller than our H1. Our heading 1 is bigger than heading 2. And then our paragraph is smaller than that. If I added an H3, it would be in between these two size-wise. Then at the very bottom of the tree here, we have our side nav, which is our bar over here. And we have all of our little tabs in that. So if you think about HTML going from this to what it looks like on the page, each of these, each element, each little tag here is kind of just like a box on the page with content. And you can tell that box to be a certain width, a certain height, to start at the left side of the page, to start at the right side of the page, and that's where CSS comes into play. So for example, my H2 right here, if I wanted it to be further to the right, I could add some margin to the left side. And you don't have to do just margin, like I said earlier, with the top and the bottom. I can just tell it directly to add margin left, for example. Maybe I'll do like 10 pixels. Notice how it bumps to the right. And if I up it, I can keep bumping it over. Pixels is a unit you're used to from like fonts. There's a whole bunch of other units too. Let's see, like EM and REM are scalable measurements. So like 5 EM is bigger than pixels, obviously. And when I make my screen smaller, that space is gonna scale with the size of my screen because I'm using EMs and not pixels. Another one that scales is percentage. So I could tell it to take up 50% of the screen on that left side. And then notice all my orange right here to show my padding or my margin. Sorry, let me explain the difference between margin and padding also. So margin, let's just add some here. So if I add padding left, 5 EMs. Notice how this box that oh wait, hang on, I'm adding it to the image. Let me add it to the actual, this purple thing. My div right here, I gave it this purple background color, which makes this box with the rounded edge, because I added more styles to make the edge round. But the div is represented by all the purple right here, and I've added margin on the top and the bottom, so it has space around the rest of the page. So notice the margin is outside of the background color. It's spacing outside of the div. Now if I add padding, let's add it to the top and make it a big amount of space. Notice the purple stays. So padding is inside of the element, and then margin is outside of the element. So that spaces the whole thing down, versus padding, it still has that background color because my div itself is that big. Okay, so this is a lot of information. Sorry about that, but this is just a quick run through of how all of this works. Okay, let's see. So we see how everything is a box on the page. Let's get to, let's make a tweak here. So let's go to a more complicated page. Actually, let's go to our home page. So I'm gonna put this on the side, so it's kind of just like more of a normal screen size here. Usually when I launch this without my console, the image is cut off, and I want this whole image to show without having to scroll, since there's not anything else on this page. So let's look into it with our Chrome console. So we have the same setup here. We have the page body and our side nav, and I created all this separation here. Usually you get a new page and it's just an empty body tag. So everything in this body tag I've added myself. So let's see, in our content, which is where all our stuff here is, we have our title, our H2, we have our image tag that links to our resources and my aquarium picture. And then I have a paragraph at the bottom to caption it. Now notice everything on this page is center aligned versus everything on the other page was left aligned. This is where I'm using that flex styling over here where I showed you guys this little link. So we're telling this box, this div that contains everything, to display everything with flex styling. Then we're telling it each item in the box should stack itself on top of each other in a column alignment. Let me find that over here. Notice this. So as the items line up, when they overflow, they're going to keep either making rows or columns. So I told this one to make columns because I want everything stacked on top of itself. If I change that to row, notice how the title is on the left, the picture's in the middle, and the caption's on the right. But I want this page to stack vertically. Oh, okay, no, it just aligned it weird. I'm gonna refresh real quick. Okay, so we're back to normal. Anything I do here, if I refresh it, it goes back to how it is in the real code. And then I'm telling it to align the items in the center. All of these options only come with your flex styling. If I told this to be at the end of the page, it'd be on the right. The start of the page would be on the left. And you can see all the options here. This is a really big plus of the dev console. You can see all the options. Oh, there you go. And click through them and see what they look like. And then you just have to transfer that over to your code. But I want this page to stay center. What I do want to change is the size of this picture. It's a bit too tall. So I'm sizing this by giving it a width of 70%. I'm telling that picture to take up 70% of the screen. And that other styling I was showing before is what's making it in the center. So on either side of this picture, there should be 15% of the screen left. That's too big. I'm going to size it down. Let's put it at 60. I'm going to make that change, and then I'm going to reload this and close my console because it's taking up screen space. But let me show you how I find this. So this, in my little styles tab, it shows I'm styling the element with the ID, because it's a hashtag, called aquarium pic. And this style is located in my global styles CSS. So my global styles applies to every page. Technically, I don't need this to apply to every page because this aquarium picture is only on one page. So I'm actually going to move this. I'm going to take this out of here. That is my bad. But that is going to go in my home page because this is everything on my home tab. And this aquarium pic is nowhere else. So I'm putting it here, and I'm going to make this 60% like we just saw in the Chrome console. Now, I'm not going to save these. I have to deploy that online. So I just made that change here. And if I refresh, nothing happens because I didn't tell Google, I didn't tell my Firebase, my web hosting, to update that code. So this picture is still over the screen and I have to scroll to see the bottom. Now I have to run this command in my terminal down here to deploy my code to Firebase. You don't have to know any of that either. I'm going to put some steps on the website on our resources page to show you how to hook this up so you can make your own website in the same way. But once that's complete, I'm back here to where I can type. That means it's done. This new code should be in there now. So all I have to do is refresh to see it. Did it happen? Hang on, let's double check. It didn't look much smaller. Okay, let's refresh again. Interesting. There we go. Okay, if it doesn't work, you might need another refresh. So now we see my aquarium pic styling is coming from home, not from global styles because I moved it. And let's see what it looks like full screen. Okay, so it's still a little bit too big that I have to scroll to the bottom. So I'm going to bump it down to 50. And this is how CSS works. You just make little tweaks until it looks right. You want to try it with different screen sizes to make sure everything adjusts right. And then yeah, you'll get it. Refresh. There we go. Almost. Still needs to be a little bit smaller. Let's make sure that size went in there. Oh, it didn't go in there. Let's refresh. 50. Okay. Perfect. Okay, now there's no scrolling on the whole page. I do have some horizontal scrolling, which I don't like. This means that my page's body is wider than the screen itself. So I'm doing something here to make this too wide. And see, I have width at 100 on my content. Maybe that's it. I'm going to take this down. Okay, there we go. See, my bar went away. When I'm at 98, it's there. When I'm at 97, it's not. So I'm going to make it a little bit smaller so I don't have that scroll bar. And let's see. Yep, 97%. Let's change that. So this is on my content, on my global style. So every page has this content box. So I can style all of them in my global style. So I'm going to change that width to 97. I gotta find content. I'm gonna search for it. Hashtag content because it's an ID. Oh, okay, so I have 2 tags named content and I don't need 2. So I'm gonna conjoin those together. We're gonna take this style out. We're adding margin to our content box. But all the styles for the same element can go in the same selector. This is called the selector right here. Here's my width. Needs to be 97. Save it, deploy it. And it's done. Let's refresh. If you have your console open, you can also right click over here and do empty cache and hard reload, which should ensure that our new styles are in there, which they are. We have 97 here now. I'm gonna exit out. Okay. Now it looks a little small, honestly. Let's refresh again. It could be a bit bigger. I'm going to make one more tweak. This is how CSS works. You're always tweaking. I'm going to move this to its own window, which you won't see because it's going to be on my other screen. But I'm going to bump my ID's size again. So it's currently at 50. That's at 53. So now we have a scroll bar. Let's bump it to 54. Okay, that's my image tag on my home page, 54 right here, and then deploy. And since we're using a percentage, it should adjust based on the size of the screen, the width of the screen specifically here. So I'm gonna hard refresh. Now it's the right size. So if the width of my screen gets smaller, my picture gets smaller. So if I change that to a non-scalable size here, like I've made it 500 pixels. Let's see what that looks like. All right, so 500 pixels is pretty little. I'm gonna bump that to 5,000 pixels. Let's see if that's crazy. Yes, okay. I'm gonna bump that to 1,000 pixels. Okay, so at this 1,000 pixel size, it's hard set at 1,000 pixels. So if my screen gets smaller, it's gonna cut it off. Versus when we have it at 50%, it's always gonna take up 50% of the screen's width. Boom, so it shrinks with the page. Okay. Sweet, so I made all the changes I needed to make, made this small enough, and showed you guys a little bit about how to use this Chrome console, what the translation from HTML to CSS and all that makes. Remember about our classes, or our IDs, our hashtags, our classes, our dots. And then yeah, our HTML is what's on the page, our CSS is what it should look like. If I got rid of all, let's do this real quick. If I got rid of all my CSS, let's see what it would look like. So on my index, my homepage, right here is where we link to styles. So I'm telling it to get your styles from global styles and from home. I'm gonna cut that real quick and deploy it. And let's see how ugly it looks without any styling. So this is just HTML, no styling at all. Refresh, and there it is. The images don't know how big to be. The font changed to the default font. The sizes of these are still, one is bigger than the other because they're H1 and H2. That comes by default. Our image is the size of the image file itself, so it's giant. And then our paragraph at the bottom, and this is our navigation bar. It just turns into some links here. So when I navigate to tutorials, that page is still linked to its styles, so we get all that back, versus our home page doesn't know how to style the HTML, and that's just, it is what it is. So that's why CSS is super important, and you got to tweak it so much. But yeah, if you have any questions about this, I know that was really fast for a lot of information. I'm going to be making more videos on some more advanced styling with the stuff I already have on screen, like... refresh this. If you have any questions, please email me about it. Where are we? Our project ideas page. Instead of just a list here, in my next video, I'm going to make these into little like tiles. So the screen, this is going to be full of more content, not just words. Like it'll be a tile with a magic 8 ball that says magic 8 ball over it. And when you hover over it, it'll give a little description of what that Python game would do, how the user would interact with it, and what kind of information it would return. Same for the rest of these. So we're going to make these pages more interesting with more CSS. All the HTML is pretty much the same. I guess we'll have to add some tiles. But yeah, stay tuned for more tutorial videos. And if you want to look at the old ones, they are here on our website on the tutorials tab. Sweet. Thanks, guys.